This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. Lend my voice to those who can. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles show. My name is Daniel Smrokowski. I'm the founder of Special Chronicles and a Special Olympics Southern Tribal International Global Messenger. Our website, specialchronicles.com. We can see archives of over 750 episodes absolutely for free. And follow Special Chronicles on social media, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. This week on the Special Chronicles show, I'm excited to welcome a listener, a friend that I've gotten to know from Berlin to Orlando. Heidi is the chair of the Special Olympics Global Athlete Leadership Council. So please put your virtual hands together as we welcome Heidi to the Special Chronicles show. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you, Daniel, for inviting me. This is an honor to be a part of your podcast, and I look forward to doing this interview with you.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you on the show. I think we first met in Orlando at the USA Games, and then we also were talking when we were in Berlin, right, at the World Games.
That is correct. And we also met in Chicago last fall when I was in your during the athletes leadership session you guys had, because the Congress participants were there taking part in that in your training in Chicago.
That's
you
right.
might not remember that, but I do.
That's what. Now that you bring it up, we remember that other event. Yeah, there's so many events. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of like all the events and like where you meet people. But yeah, those were lots of exciting events. And so on this episode, we'll get into so our listeners can get to meet you, hear a little bit about your story, and then. In a little bit later I think in the third segment, we'll go into talk a little bit about your experience at the Global Athlete Congress in Berlin that just took place a couple months ago. So first, let's have you introduce yourself and have you share with our listeners how we got connected, which you kind of said, but then also let our listeners know what disability you were diagnosed with.
Sure. Well, my name is Heidi Mallett. As Daniel had mentioned, I'm the chair of the Global Athletes Leadership Council, where I represent the Zona region, which is Canada, the U.S., and the Caribbean. As you can tell, as you'll hear, it's a big job and it's a great opportunity. I am from Prince Edward Island, Canada. It's in the eastern part of Canada. Prince Edward Island is in the Maritimes, so besides Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It's a great location. I live in a small little town called Alberton. It's not very big, and it's I'm well known in my community because I'm out and about mingling with people just almost every day. The disability I've been diagnosed with, when my mother was pregnant, she came in contact with German measles. So therefore I had, they call it rubella. And so what I ended up happening was that I was visually and hearing impaired, which is partially, thank goodness, I should say, I'm thankful for that. Because that allows me to do what I'm doing today and gives me the independence to live the life that I can live. Because I also live on my own independently. I have my own apartment, and I am an advocate on behalf of people with disabilities throughout Canada as around the world. So that's part of my role and part of my life.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get into a little bit more of your story and the early years coming up in the next segment after this short break. We'll be right back right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a nonprofit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcast, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give. And that was a great introduction for your for our listeners. And let's begin before we get into athlete leadership and the Global Athlete Leadership Council, and talking about our time in Berlin, which we'll get to in the next segment. But let's have you take our listeners back to your very early years and share some of the challenges because of your disability.
Sure, Daniel, we can certainly do that. Well, when I was born, my parents were told that I would not be able to walk or talk. Well, I can say I can prove the doctors wrong because I'm able to walk, I'm able to talk, I'm able to do many things. The only thing that I really can't do is drive. But I will get to that. I want to get to what sports I participate in, and then I'm also what I'm able to accomplish out of that. Yeah. If that's okay with you, Daniel.
Yeah.
So the sports I participate in are golf, bocce, 5-pin bowling, snowshoeing, basketball. So my favorite sport is golf. Back a few years ago, I'm kind of going to go backwards here for a minute, but because back a few years ago, a coach said to me, we're going to take the golf carts out. So when I said, who's going to drive the other golf cart? He said, you. I said, me? He said, yeah, it's going to be you. I said, okay. So I can't drive in the highway. So I had the opportunity to drive the golf cart out in the golf course. Now that I know how to drive the golf cart, back up, turns, whatnot, drive over hills, I can drive. It gives me that freedom of independence. So it's a blessing in one sensible way, that I'm able to drive the golf cart. So now we're going to go back to when I was little. So when my parents were told that I was not able to walk or talk, I've had many opportunities, even though it was not easy. Schooling was not easy for me. It was hard, like it is for a lot of people with intellectual disabilities and developmental, of course. And I struggled in school because of a lack of friends. Most of my friends were probably teachers or older adults than me, until I got a little bit older, where I was able to join my church youth group. I was able to join Brownies, but to have friends go out and do things with, that was not there as much. So then when I, throughout my youth years, I had friends, but maybe you just go to social events, but maybe they just don't invite you to different gatherings as much, or it might be one or two that will do that. But as I got older and started getting involved in more groups and got my foot in the door, I did learn to develop friends and closeness of getting to know people because I got involved in the community. And being involved in the community says a lot because I participated in ways that I developed the skills I needed from learning from my mother, teaching me the skills, and also to live independently as I got older. Because, I wanted to move down to another part of the island, which is Prince Edward Island. We call it the city, the main Charlottetown. And I did move there for 7 years. So I wanted to work. So I did work, contract work, which very, very short. I did work up here, but it didn't work out. It was always contract. So I did the same thing down in Charlottetown, worked in nursing homes and in the activity departments. And I love that kind of job. But for one reason or another, the door just kept closing. So I'm a firm believer in that. So it was time, and I had some issues where I was living in a room and board environment. So it was time for me to move back up west, where I'm originally was born and raised in Alberton. So there was 2 goals I had in mind. One goal was to get employment. Another goal was to have a job, or not a job, sorry, to have my own apartment. Well, the employment never did happen, but I got my own apartment. And that was a big accomplishment because that was a goal I wanted. And I've been here in my own apartment for over 19 years. It will be 20 next year. So that's a huge accomplishment because it shows that I can live independently and be involved in the community. So I had to find other ways to keep myself busy. So over time, I started to get involved in volunteering out in the community. And I volunteered at a day program for seniors. And that is able to give me the skills to be independent and work with seniors and help them when they need help. And I often go out and visit seniors who live alone, who are not able to maybe get out in the community like I can, and and to help them do errands for them. I often do that. And of course, when the pandemic happened, I was able to do that for some because they needed this, they didn't have family support, or they just needed somebody to go and get the mail for them. And I don't mind doing that because I think that's a part of being part of the community and being a way to contribute and knowing that I can do these things. So I hope that answers your question, Daniel.
No, perfect. You gave our listeners a great glimpse into your early years, and I really liked how you highlighted not just your challenges, but you focused on your accomplishments and the joys because of your disability. And for a lot of us special Olympics athletes like myself and yourself and the millions across the globe that have intellectual disabilities like us, that's what I think Special Olympics does so well for us is they, and especially through athlete leadership, which we'll get to in a few moments, but they focus on our accomplishments and what we're able to do despite the challenges that we have. Can you share with us a little bit more about how you got involved in Special Olympics in Prince Edward Island and in Canada, like some of your very early years of your the full sport that you participated in, and a little bit more about how you both got involved in this movement?
That excuse me, that's not a problem. How I got involved, I've always heard of Special Olympics. For one reason or another, the timing just wasn't right. Like I didn't get involved in my younger years because in West Prince there wasn't enough Special Olympics, and I guess too, I just wasn't ready for it. You know how sometimes things are oh, you don't think you'll fit in, or it's just not the right thing for you at that time, or whatever the case may be, or you just don't feel that you're needed at that time. But anyway, as I got a little bit older, back in 2006, I just thought it was right. We had some sporting programs in my area. It was after the passing of my father, and the timing was right. And my mom had said to me one day, you needed to go and make a life for yourself, which she was right about that. So it was a good way for me to get back out into the community. And so I got involved in the Special Olympics, and my very first sport was bowling. So that was in the fall of 2006. And then in 2008, I believe, I started golf in the summer. A friend of mine introduced me to golf, so I went to golf. So that was okay. And then in 2009, little did I know that I was going to be going over to New Brunswick, where is the province next to Prince Edward Island, and to play golf. So I didn't know anybody. So that was okay, meeting these coaches, and I never met this gentleman before. So long story short, we get down to meet the bus, and, first provincial games, and this coach and I and my friend, we just clicked really well with this family, and he's been my caddy ever since. And we look forward to seeing each other every year. But anyway, that led to opportunities for me to just to go into snowshoeing. So I did snowshoeing. And one day I was at a Special Olympics event, and the CEO come up to her. She was the program director at that time. And she come up to me and she said, I got a question to ask you. I said, well, okay, what's the question? And she said, would you, you've been selected for snowshoeing. Would you go? And I said, yeah, I'll go. I said, I didn't think I would ever meet that qualifications. So I did. I met that qualifications, and I went off. The first national games was in Alberta. St. Albert's, Alberta, just a little outside of Edmonton. So I went there, and then from there, and 2 years later, I went to the first summer games for golf. So off to Vancouver I went, and I will say I loved Vancouver. It was a very nice city. I'd go back tomorrow, but it's nice to learn different things. So then from there, in 2020, I went to Thunder Bay for five-pin bowling. So here I have many opportunities to be in the 3 national games. And like I said, when I went for snowshoeing, I got gold and silver. And then when I went for the golf in Vancouver, I got bronze. And then in Thunder Bay, I got silver. So it's been remarkable, and it's given me many opportunities to go to Nova Scotia, because that's where I go for golf almost every year. And it's a highlight of my summer, just like, of course, for you, Brandon, or I shouldn't say Brandon, Daniel, for you to have some highlights in your life with Special Olympics that you enjoy going to every year, and you look forward to those events. So that's how I started Special Olympics.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great to hear about all the different events that you have participated in, and a few different national games. And why did you decide that you wanted to be involved in this movement in Special Olympics? Because I'm sure that there's probably other organizations too in your town, and in your province that you could, but like this movement, what drew you to this movement?
I think what drew me to this movement was that I was able to know that I can compete with other people at the same level as me in divisioning. And it gave me an opportunity to be able to do that because as you know, in other sports with regular people, it's hard to compete with them because their skills or their levels are a lot higher than mine. And some of them are quite competitive. And I'm not a real competitive person. And I believe that's what brought me to the movement so that I can compete at a level that I'm able to compete at because I'm not a pro. And I know that I can, as time, I'll use golf for an example. Golf is a lot of learning and a lot of patience. So did I learn golf overnight? No. It took me years to get to where I am. I'm still improving every day and using the skills that I need to learn to keep me going. And it's taught me a lot, just like driving the golf cart scenario that I used earlier. And people skills, even though I love people, it gave me the opportunity to meet people from all over the world, which we will get to in a few minutes. But it's given me opportunities. When I first started, I wouldn't even thought of. And I will get to those in a few minutes as well. But in saying that, it's allowed me to grow. It's allowing me to advocate on behalf of people. And now they kind of say, you could be a coach. And I'd rather mentor people than be a coach. Mm-hmm. And sometimes coaches come to me for feedback and suggestions. Or they could be having an issue with maybe an athlete. And sometimes I'll go to that athlete and say, this is what you need to work on. You're not going to get this tonight. It's going to take you time to get there. Just recently, we just had a new athlete start. And he is not going to learn things overnight. It's going to take him time to get there. So I'll say to him, you might get to provincial someday. It might take you a few years, but you got to learn a few things first. Then you will get there. So because then you don't want them to set high expectations. So it's better to start small and work your way up. I'm a firm believer in that. If you start at the bottom, work your way up, you will eventually get to where you want to go someday.
Awesome. Well, I think that's, I love everything that you said. Especially, I think that's how a lot of us got involved in this movement, is so that way we can compete against people with the same abilities, and like what our athlete also says, it doesn't matter if we win, but just if we're brave in the attempt. And I think you spoke to that so well that people kind of hold a great powerful message that of why you wanted to be involved in this movement. We're going to go ahead and take another short break. When we come back, we'll get into your journey in athlete leadership and a little bit about time in Berlin, and in particular your time at the Global Athlete Congress that took place in Berlin, Germany, just a couple months ago. And because all this of what you shared in these first two segments, or in this past segment in particular, about your early years and your accomplishments on the sports field, then has given you the skills to go into athlete leadership, which we will get to after this short break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. We'll be right back. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. The Energy Force is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives, and Larry is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they are literally giving a voice to people with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd. Support for Special Chronicles comes from United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with United Airlines and the Bridge BLG. Bridge BLG is committed to being an ally for all employees and customers with disabilities. Bridge helps to create internal awareness, to keep accessibility needs in mind, and partner with key organizations to empower disability inclusion for employment and travel. Bridge, connecting people of all abilities. Book your travel today on United.com or on the award-winning United app. Learn more on United's commitment to disability inclusion for employment and travel at specialchronicles.com/United. That's specialchronicles.com/United. So, what listeners heard in that previous segment is, again, your early years and your story on the sports field. But as we know, and the many other athlete leaders in this movement, both within our North America region, within our local programs, but also the athlete leaders across the globe, like my fellow SSI GMs and the other athlete leaders that you work with on the Global Athlete Leadership Council, know that our skills go beyond the sports field. So take us back to how you first got involved in athlete leadership. Was it in Special Olympics? So you're telling me just before we started to be close, just before we started recording, that you have a unique story to how you got involved in athlete leadership. So can you share with us?
Yep. Thank you, Daniel. I'll certainly do that. I'd like to go back just before I started athlete leadership with Special Olympics. Back in 2004, I had a dream, and I did not know this was happening at that time. As we all know, around the world, how we have housing shortage for people with disabilities or intellectual disabilities. Of course, we had that here in my community. So I had a dream, and this lady called me one day, who was the residential coordinator for community inclusions. And we had a conversation. We had to talk about, of course, other things. And I didn't know at that time where she was calling me, but anyway, and then we had that conversation, and I said, I had a dream about housing. I said, we need housing. And she said, well, that's why I'm calling you, because we have just formed a committee, and we want to know if you would be interested in sitting on this housing committee. I said, yes, I'll think about it. I'll pray about it, of course. And I did that. And she said, the executive director will give you a call. And I said, not a problem. So this was on a Friday. I can remember the day. I told her my dream and where it was, that we need to build housing and so forth and so on. And so anyway, that was okay. This was and then I think Monday or Tuesday, he called me and he said, would you be interested in sitting on the housing committee? And my answer was literally yes. And so I did that from 2004 until 2007. And then they came and said, he said, would you be interested in sitting on our board of directors? And I said, yes, I'm going to sit on the board of directors because I knew we still need housing. And I wanted to advocate for people with disabilities. So then in the meantime, back a couple years earlier, I got a phone call, and there was another organization that advocates for people with disabilities. It's called People First. And we have that here in PDI and Prince Edward Island, and that was okay. I joined that committee, our local group here in West Prince. So I helped get that started. So that was okay. So then in 2007, like I said, I joined the board, community inclusion. So I did that. And then in 2008, I joined the PEI People First board. Okay. And I did a lot of speeches for both organizations, a lot of advocacy work and going to government to advocate for housing and so forth and so on. And these other organizations kept calling me to speak on behalf of people with disabilities. So I'm a firm believer, like I said, when one door closes, another one opens. So I went into these organizations knowing that we still needed housing all over Prince Edward Island. So I did that. So then 2009, I had a gutsy feeling something was up. So that's People First, PEI People First. I went down to that board meeting and they asked me, they said, you've been nominated. Would you run for, we need a vice chair? I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I was elected to be their vice chair. So then that journey led to 2 years later, or a year and a half later, I guess, then I was the president of PEI People First. So that gave me the opportunity, because the way that organization works is that once you're the president, you're automatically on the People First of Canada board. So I did that for 3 years, and I was still sitting on the Community Inclusions Board. And by that time, we started the first housing project back in 2009. It was just down the road from where I lived, and it wasn't where I dreamed, but I knew we needed housing. So I was able to accomplish that project. So then in we completed the project in 2010. And I'll never forget the night I was up there. I had to go up, the CEO and I had to see to something up there, which I did a lot of that because we had to deal with town and, getting bylaws changed and all that kind of thing. And it was frustrating at times, but we got through it. So then there was times I'd get phone calls at 7:30 in the morning. Heidi, are you going to be home? Yeah, I'm going to be home. So then they would call because they were frustrated with the system and everything, and they needed somebody to talk to. So long or behold, we would talk, and then I hear things out in the street, and then, they needed information and all that kind of thing, and I didn't mind doing that. So anyway, it was a big project. So make a long story short, I did that, and then I went into. When that project was completed, we started another one in O'Leary, another community just down the road from my place. And I worked on that project. And then another year and a half later, we did another project. And it's a bakery cafe. And we did that project. So I did 3 building projects within 5 years. So getting back to People First, I served on that to 2014, and I came off of it. And then in 2017, they asked me back again. I said, yeah, okay, I'll sit on that. So then I was back on the People First of Canada board, and I that's how I learned the skills, because I was, chairing meetings and conducting and planning and doing these projects, everything that came with it. So I enjoyed all that. And it was challenging at times because of people you work with or other people that you're on the board with. And the same with community inclusions. But that's where I learned a lot of my skills, is because I was doing so many different roles. So in 2018, I co-chaired with another person from 16 to 2018. So then in 2018, I was asked by Special Olympics Prince Edward Island if I would come on their board. So I did. I did that, and I've been on there since. So just to back up to 2017, 2016, sorry. I know I'm giving a lot of years, but that's how I started Special Olympics, the Canadian Athletes Leadership Council. Well, to give you a little bit of idea how that role started, was I had a gusty feeling, you know how you have feelings, and I get them. So I said, okay, something is up. So I prayed about it, so forth and so on. And then a few days later, I get an email. Heidi, would you go to Ontario to represent us to form the policies and procedures in terms of references? I said, yeah, I'll go. So off I went, 2016. 2017, they asked me to be on their council. So I served on that council, and I've been there ever since. This will be my last year on that council. And so then in 2020, I'm going to get into how I got into the Global Athletes Leadership Council.
Yeah, first before we get into that, Heidi, can you let us? I'm sure some of our listeners that are involved in Special Olympics, like us, and everybody know what the Global Athlete Leadership Council is, but I'm sure there might be some listeners who might be new athlete leaders or who might not know what it is. Can you first just very briefly just tell us what the Global Athlete Leadership Council is?
Okay. Well, the Global Athletes Leadership Council is like 7 regions. So there's a representative from each region. So I represent the Zona North America region, which we call Zona through Special Olympics. And that is Canada, the US, and the Caribbeans. We discussed many different topics, from World Games to health to meeting with the Special Olympics International Board of Directors Advisory Committee once a year, to the breach report, to policies on new sports or sports rules, anything that and also planning the Global Athletes Leadership Congress, which was just held a couple months ago in Berlin, Germany. And that was a lot of work, because I was also on the planning committee. So being a part of that planning committee led to other things, but it also led the council making decisions on the 4 topics that we discussed at that council or Congress, as well as projects. So that's briefly what the council does. So I'll go back how
awesome.
I got somewhere.
Yeah. Go back to now, like how you became chair of the Global Athlete Leadership Council, and
well, before I became chair,
a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so when I got selected was in October in 2020. So before I got selected, I received this letter. I'm not going to go into a whole lot, only to say that I can do the job. So I applied for it, like anybody else. You have an interview and all that process that comes to it. So in October, November, I got selected. That was okay. So a little of my responsibilities before I became chair was that any topics that gets discussed, like in health or World Games, from the from the sports department, we take that to regional councils. So for an example, here in North America, I have 3 regional councils. So I would take that information to the US, the Caribbean, and the Canadian Athletes Leadership Council and get their feedback and answers on those topics. Such as we just, not long ago, we just did health on mental health and some of the screenings that may come down the road, like therapy, just to give an example. So we ask for their feedback on those topics, if they think it's good or what changes might need to be made or what are affecting athletes today with mental health. So those topics go to those 3 councils, and then they come back to me and I share that with our council, and then it goes back to the health department for an example. So they see to all that and whatever happens after that. So that's part of my job. I was elected as chair of June of 2021. So I've been doing it ever since. And my term will come to an end this December. And the responsibilities as chair is planning monthly meetings that we will discuss each meeting, and also lead those meetings as a chairperson or president. And you would lead those meetings and make sure that they are timely fashion, because we have an hour and a half. You have translation to deal with. And that's a good thing, because you got to make sure that there are a lot of time to speak, and it gives us time to make sure that the information flows through properly, and the meetings go well. So, and I'm a person that during those meetings we have to give regional updates, and then we talk about the discussion of topics that we're going to be talking on each month. So every month is different, but that's how generally my role is as chair. Plus, I had to help plan the Congress, the 2023 Congress, Global Athletes Congress. And that was a quite busy role, because I had to attend meetings just about almost every week or every 2 weeks. Plus, there was other meetings besides that. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what the Global Athletes Leadership Congress or Council is all about.
So it sounds like you guys are making a big impact on this movement with the work and the planning that you guys are doing, and with this Global Athlete Leadership Council. And speaking of the Congress that you just mentioned at the end there, we were both recently in Berlin at the 2023 World Games in Berlin, Germany. And I know my schedule as a Southern Tribal in international global messenger was pretty busy with and I won't go into all that. For listeners, you can go back the episodes in July on this podcast were recorded on location from Berlin, so you can hear a bunch of my different engagements that I had. But you took part in the Global Athlete Congress, and I know we as a society, I think we popped into to a little bit, at least the opening session and a little bit, but didn't get to spend that much time into what you guys were involved in. But can you give us one or two brief highlights of your time at the Global at the Congress? Now that, since you said that you were as chair and as part of the Global Athlete Leadership Council, you guys were planning this Global Athlete Congress. So how did it go from your perspective? Like, kind of, can you give us one or two kind of brief highlights from?
Sure.
from how the.
Okay, well, Daniel, I'll certainly give you a few highlights of that. That's not a problem. The way the Congress works is that we began with the opening session. That was a wonderful opportunity because we had many different speakers, such as myself and Kira Violet leading the panel, and with different sponsors and Unified Leadership. And then we had Tim Schreiber there, and we also had other speakers there, and also the Athlete Leadership Research Study from Belgium University, I believe it was, and 3 speakers from there. So that was a great opportunity, and that was one highlight that I can recall. Other highlights was we elected the new chair of the local Congress. That Kira Violet had got elected for that role. And I think that's a highlight for our athletes because they're going to have an athlete representative on the Special Olympics International Board, which is a huge opportunity. And as well, another thing that our athletes have great input on is that we call it the 4 topics. And they vote on those 4 topics. And then one of those topics will be brought to the board in the near future, I should say, for them to discuss and to make it a reality, hopefully, that will help us lead as athletes along further, because we want athletes to be a voice, and that's what they're there to do. And they're there to learn the skills as an athlete leader, to go back into their community, whether it's local, regional, or international. And that helps them develop their skills so that they can continue to use those skills, not only in Special Olympics, but outside of their sports and outside of athlete leadership as well. Because if we don't teach them the skills, then how are they going to be able to maintain life in their community? But it's going to help them grow so that they can develop and be the council members that they are in their regions, and to represent other athletes that cannot speak up for themselves. And I often say I find it a privilege and a right to speak up for myself and be a voice for those that can't speak for themselves. And on the last night, Daniel, you were there when we had and that's a highlight of the Congress participants that are there, and so is the SIGMs. Is to have the intercultural cultural night and see some good live entertainment from our athletes participating in that and singing. I think that's a great highlight to share as well, because we get to see many different acts from all around the world and cultures from people from all around the world, and get to know each other. I think that's a huge accomplishment as well.
Yeah. That intercultural night was a lot of fun to see a lot of the acts from along the globe. I know when I follow SSIGM's Asib from Pakistan, he performed a dance, I think, and Renee, who used to be from Hawaii, she's now from Texas. She sang a song, and there was lots of just some really powerful performances that took place during the intercultural night. I don't know, when this podcast goes live, maybe we'll have to. I don't know if you took any pictures during that. I think I might have a couple pictures, but I don't know if you we'll see if maybe we can find some pictures that we can share with our listeners from that intercultural night, so you all can see some of the performances. I'll try to see if I can find some pictures so you all can see. But yeah, so that. Thanks for highlighting
Can I bring something else up? Yeah. Because you were involved in this as well, is the the Gokul Forum for Inclusions, as some of our athletes, council members got to participate in that, including myself, because I was on the coaching panel. And it was a huge opportunity to see our athletes involved in that, as well as other government and stakeholders and politicians and scientists and people that work with people with disabilities. And I think that gives our athletes to be good contributors to that event, because it allows us to be the voices that they need to hear. Because the ultimate goal is someday is to have our athletes be fully leading in different things and functions and events and whatever that might be. And I think that shows that our athletes can do these things with the help and supports of other people. That's all I wanted to say to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you also mentioned the Global Forum for Inclusion. Yeah, that was another powerful event to be part of. I know we had a couple of the other SSI GMs. I think Ian from Great Britain had co-emceed. I know I think Asib had spoke. Manu and I had co-presented a session at the forum, at the Global Forum, about how athlete leadership impacts in the community. So yeah, it's pretty impactful and powerful to see. As athlete leaders, we have all these different events that we're able to be a part of, whether it's the Global Forum for Inclusion or the Global Athlete Congress, and that we're able to be fully included in and share our stories, whether it's on a panel or in a session. We're going to go ahead and take one final break. When we come back, we'll get into some final thoughts and let people know how they can get involved in Special Olympics, at least within our North America region, or wherever you are listening from. So we'll be right back right here on Special Chronicles. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. At Special Chronicles, we proudly host our weekly podcast with Podbean, and highly recommend you use Podbean Podcast Hosting to get started in podcasting today. Sign up for an unlimited hosting plan and get 1 month free now to get started in podcasting today. When you visit specialchronicles.com/Podbean. That's specialchronicles.com/Podbean. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard, the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser. Interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Sign up for StreamYard today using our StreamYard referral link when you visit specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. That's specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. And as we come to a close in this final segment of the program, it's been fascinating to hear at the beginning of the episode your early years, and then just now talking about your experiences in Berlin at the Global Athlete Congress. Can you share with our listeners a little bit more about the Global Athlete Leadership Council? And we talked about the Global Forum for Inclusion. But for now, if any of our listeners want to get involved in Special Olympics, whether it's up in Prince Edward Island or wherever they're listening from, can you let our listeners know where they can go to get involved?
Sure. The ways you can get involved is if you go onto the Special Olympics Prince Edward Island website. They will have some great opportunities for you there to see if there's, because we have a variety of different sports. Right now, we're doing summer, and we will be wrapping that up in a few weeks and getting ready to do the fall and winter program starting after Thanksgiving in October. And we also have our Special Olympics Canada also has a website and their Facebook page. And I'm sure that there'll be lots of information there, because the way Canada does that is they represent all the chapters throughout Canada or programs. Some people call it chapters, some people call it programs. So, and if you go under their website, and in that way, that gives you the province that you're living in or territory. And that way you can go there and then you just select where you're living, and that will come up, and they will, all that information will be there.
Awesome. So we'll put links in the show notes. We'll probably point all of your listeners to specialolympics.org, and that's where you can find your local programs to get involved in. And before we get to the final question, do you have any final thoughts on your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles show that you'd like to share with us?
No, Brandon, I don't. But I will say thank you for giving me the opportunity. And it's been an honor to be a part of this podcast. It was something I look forward to doing, for a long time. As you and I, back 2 months ago, or even before that, we had some conversation of doing this, and it was an honor. And I love advocating for disabilities, and I will continue to do that throughout my life. And I had one lady, she's passed away now, and I went to visit her one day, and I'm going to share this because this is how it keeps me going. And she said to me, she said, Heidi,
awesome.
Please don't leave the disability field. I said, I have no intention of doing that. And I think she reminds me of that quite often, and keeps me going. It keeps me advocating. And of course, little did I know that at that time, and I didn't know I was going to be involved in Special Olympics International, but I had a dream one day that I would, and I didn't even know if it was going to be this organization or People First, and you just don't know. And of course, Special Olympics, the Local Athletes Leadership Council came available, and that was an open door for me to be a part of something international. So I can say that I had that dream come true.
Well, awesome. It's been a joy to have you on the program. We got one final question, and I'll go ahead and
When Here's athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an upright, peaceful protesters
In a rebellion against anyone.
with your difference. Our demands are
Equality,
dignity,
and the recognition of our
shared humanity. We will not stop or accept anything less.
Today, our world
More alive than ever. And coming together has never been more urgent.
the revolution is inclusion. Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
So we got about a minute left in the program, and so very briefly, ever since I attended the 2019 Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi, been asking all the guests one final question, so I'll do the same with you. Inclusion and the inclusion revolution is a big part of this movement. So very briefly, can you answer what does inclusion mean to you?
Well, what inclusion means to me is that to be involved in the community and having friends to do things with, like just to go out and socialize and interact with others. And I think that's what inclusion, and respecting for each other and respect their opinions for who they are.
Awesome. Well, that's a perfect way to wrap up this episode. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode. So keep following and stay following. Keep following this podcast, the Special Chronicles podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and tap that follow button so you never miss a new episode. Remember our website, SpecialChronicles.com, where you can find the show notes of this episode. Follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter, and all that. And we'll be back next week right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Remember, choose to include, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you